We interrupt your social media with a special announcement. This is yet another Biohackers live show. I'm here live on studio together with Max Gosler, who just flew in from Germany, I guess for a bachelor's party.
That's right.
Yeah. So welcome.
Well, thanks for having me, Teemu. Excited to be part of this live show. And this is my first time actually at Biohacker Center. I've been here a couple of times now at the Biohacker Summit, obviously. And like you said, I have a circle of friends sort of here, but I stumbled upon the center now for the first time.
Wonderful. So I just want to remind our audience that you're most welcome. And if you want to join the discussion, you can just use the hashtag Biohacker Summit. That is where Max will be speaking as well. So you can also go to biohackersummit.com and you can find more information of our upcoming event, 1st and 2nd of November in Helsinki, Finland. It's our 5-year anniversary. It's the world's top optimal human performance conference, one of the biggest biohacking conferences in Europe. You're most welcome if you're interested. And Max, you spoke also at our event in, where was that last time?
The last one was in Stockholm.
In Stockholm, yeah. And so you're the flow grade guy. You basically got interested in biohacking, and it took you down the road of the flow state and how you can access your unlimited focus and potential in every moment of the day. And I think that fits really well with our theme, optimize your day 24/7. So I think all of us need more focus and to be able to maximize the opportunities for a flow state during the day. And that can be also for exercise. So I guess that's also when you're doing any kind of sports, if you can access your flow state, that's when you're performing at your best. Is that right?
That's it. It's sort of, that state that I stumbled upon as the most powerful thing. In basketball, we actually call it to be in the zone, when you're just focused on the game and you stop thinking about who's watching or what you're doing or what other people think of you. And you're in this high performance state. And musicians know it, creatives know it, actors know it, when you just lose yourself in the moment. And that was sort of my ultimate goal in order to unhack myself. And when I got in touch with biohacking and when I found the first methods and to increase performance or concentration was actually to attain that state. And that's pretty much what my work is now based on. That's the foundation. And the company is called FlowGrade instead of Upgrade, because I said, actually, for me, I'd like to help FlowGrade people. So get them into the state of flow in order to perform better, feel alive, feel present, be mindful. So a lot of the concepts actually that you find nowadays in meditation and yoga, I think they have that sort of the same similar goal. Some call it mindfulness, complete mindfulness. Some call it to be in the pocket. That's actually from the musicians who just keep playing and improvising without really thinking about what they're playing. Kids do it when they play. And I think as adults, we lose that more and more. And so now for me, biohacking was sort of that tool of systems of the box of tools that allowed me, as someone who's very easily distracted by numerous things, to narrow my focus, because flow follows focus, and then to get into that state and then do actually what I think is important.
I think that's a really important topic today for anyone who really is looking for high performance. Now, you've been organizing the Flow Fest, which is, I guess, the largest biohacking related conference in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And your next event is when?
It's this year in July 6th. The main event is going to be July 6th. On the 5th, we also going to have, inspired by the Biohacker Summit, a dinner for speakers and sponsors. And you're going to be part of it again. And we're doing it for the 3rd time this year. And if you remember, the first year was sort of a trial and experimental kind of event. And I asked you for your help, and you first of all consulted me quite a bit, and then we were one of our keynote speakers. And yeah, we're doing it for the third time this year, and pretty much every year doubled attendance. And we noticed that also in that German-speaking market, which wasn't really catered for at that time, there was a high demand for an event like that, for people to come together, talk about health-related subjects, to find that best version of yourself. And and actually not only in Germany, in the German-speaking European area, so including Austria and Switzerland, we are definitely I'd say the go-to event now for German speakers. So
Right.
our concept is we try to be a bit more international year by year, but still the majority of talks and experts that we invite are German speaking. Because as you know, I guess in Finland the percentage is probably higher, but still, even though there are a lot of people in Germany speaking English, there's still a large percentage of people that don't, or they'd rather listen to a German talk or a podcast even than in English. And so we said we're going to dive into that segment and make that content also a lot what you provide in the book and in the summit available to that German-speaking audience.
You actually wrote a book also yourself. So here we have the biohacking book.
Yeah, and you're mentioned in
Optimiere
it.
dich selbst. Optimize yourself. So it's a very colorful book for sure, and looks very practical. So how has biohacking been taken? Oh, thank you for the note here. So how has biohacking been, appreciated in Germany today?
Actually, I'd say much better than expected, because I think that the publisher, the head of the publishing company, Christian, he became a big fan of biohacking and offered me that opportunity to make that book. And then we wrote it. And I think that he really believed in it, but many of his colleagues that say, they didn't know if the German market was ready for something like that already. And they were quite surprised. Like by now we've sold more than 10,000 copies, and it's been out for about a year now. And yeah, it's quite anecdotal. And as I said, yeah, you're mentioned in it because I pretty much put a lot of stories that I've experienced over the last 5 years, ever since I've gotten in touch with biohacking. And we go way back, Teemu, as you remember, in that book. And for me, it was important to put my own stamp and my own perspective in it. So like in comparison to the Biohacker's Handbook, which is very detailed and explaining the processes and going into the science.
You can actually
really
show this.
I'd say mine is really focused on the stories, like how did I get in touch with a certain method. For example, I talk about meeting Wim Hof in one section and what he taught me, and then I go through the steps of how someone can then use the Wim Hof method. But it's quite anecdotal.
Yeah. So when it comes to, it's very practical and based on science as well, but anecdotal in a way that it's for any layman, I guess, who wants to get into biohacking. And I got to know you way back, and you were more into sports and all that. And suddenly you did a shift into this industry of producing supplements for biohackers, as well as organizing events and all that. What got you down on that road?
Yeah, it was very much an iterative process of trying out different things. And I'm also quite, curious. And when I encounter the new things, I wanted to, dive a bit more into that segment. But still, I'd say that fitness aspect and that sports aspect, that's still very present. So in the beginning, it was really about finding ways to recover quicker, to enhance physical performance on the basketball court at first, and then later just a general fitness. And going from there, I found out methods to dive deeper into certain systems, like how to enhance your immune function and so on. But I would really call myself still a student more than an expert, because there's so much, and the deeper you dive, sort of the wider the field becomes, and all of a sudden you encounter an expert in a field you've never heard about before. And for example, magnetism or quantum physics or quantum health, which is a big topic nowadays. Now which I really don't know much about yet, but it's the whole concept of 5G and how that influences your body, which is going to be relevant for pretty much all of us very soon. And so like every year, it seems like there's a new field.
Yeah,
And
biohackers seem to discover all these things that are influencing our health in the future. So that might be through the food chain, like some things that are lurking in our food that might not be good for us, might be lack of nutrients, might be additional antibiotics, might be anything that is really after getting your health down. And then there is hidden things like lights. We're using blue light blocking glasses right now to reduce the influence of blue light, and then there is all this discussion around electromagnetic pollution. And yeah, I mean, you're using filtered water right there, so just from a filtration perspective, our pipes and our whole like system of delivering water to people in cities is not necessarily the cleanest. So I mean, biohacking is timely for anyone who's really looking for that last edge, that last mile of improving their health and performance. And it can have substantial effects in your day-to-day life. I'm a big believer that it's not, maybe a 30-day challenge that you do or one big, lifestyle change that you do, but it's all these small things that you do repeatedly every day that over time make a big difference. So it's the daily increase, the daily improvement that is kind of key. And when we're talking about flow and when we're talking about getting into that state of better functioning, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to pop a bunch of supplements and do bulletproof coffee and drink filtered water. All of that is not necessarily getting you into the flow state, right? So those might help in certain ways. If you drink too much coffee, you're not going to be able to focus either. So you have to find a balance. So maybe you put some theanine in there to kind of lower your high activity of brain waves so that you can actually concentrate with that increased focus and attention and alertness. So it's a fine line. It's kind of like the homeostasis in the human body, what flow is, like kind of that you are not overactive or overactivated or stimulated, and you're not understimulated either or bored into what you're doing, but finding that sweet spot. So in the end, like health is like that. It's about balance. So can you rap a little bit about flow? Because you built a company around the concept. Rap. Yeah, you can.
I can. I wished I could
give
rap.
Me your best.
Give me
your best.
Can't rap.
Best effort,
I might
man.
be able to sing. No, I can't sing either. You know what? I think I found out. I actually just talked to Max, your surfer boy out there.
Yeah, Max Anakin. He's the
and
man.
We
sounds like some guy from Star Wars, right?
Who?
Maximus Anakin.
Oh yeah, well, definitely.
Yeah. It's like a biohacker version of some kind of biohacking version of Star Wars.
Oh man, we should show him. I mean, he has a shirt on now.
He's a Jedi. Come over here, man.
Man,
so
all the girls.
You can go behind him, so that people see Maximus Anakin, who we're talking about.
So
yeah, he's the guy.
My
Thank you, Max.
Cousin in terms of my first name.
Your double.
So we were talking about surfing before, and then he's like, yeah, because I said when the environment is right and it sort of forces you into that flow state, like then you don't really need to do much more because your body will do the rest.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, when I go surfing, then it happens automatically. I don't have to do anything. I'm just I get on the wave and then surfing, and that's exactly it, because you're already in the environment, but you put yourself in that environment beforehand. So you planned your surfing trip, you went into the water, you got your surfboard, you sort of mentally prepared what you want to do. And I think in everyday life, this is quite hard because it's tough to, first of all, decide what you want to get motivated for. And I think that's sort of the prerequisite to get into that state of flow.
Of course.
And what I've noticed also, and I think that's sort of like the conundrum of biohacking sometimes, is that we throw around with all those supplements and these methods, bulletproof coffee or biohacker coffee, these nootropics in order to enhance your mental capacity, your performance. But oftentimes, and I think Jamie Wheel, the founder of Flow Genome Project, put it quite nicely. When you want to be bulletproof, you got to know which bullets you want to step in front of.
Right.
And I think that's what many people miss. So they end up motivating themselves or stimulating themselves with stimulants, nicotine or caffeine, different nootropics. But then they end up motivating themselves for things that they actually don't really want to do. So you're like hyper, like you said before, and then you find something that you want to work on. And there's actually a quite nice story that I have from a friend of mine who was pimping his thinking with modafinil. So very common smart drugs among biohackers nowadays, or at least a couple of years ago.
Originally designed for narcolepsy and people who do shift work and need to be able to have focused attention over time. It's also a great alternative to amphetamines because it has less side effects. But I mean, like amphetamines, it does increase your heart rate, but definitely does increase your cognitive capability. Many people also report that it completely takes away your creativity. So if you want to get into a flow state in terms of creative potential, modafinil is not necessarily that. Is that right? Like so you need to choose the right tool for the right kind of flow state you're going for. If you want to really grind through, a bunch of, I don't know, repetitive machine-like automated work that a human does, modafinil is great. But
even writing a book, I have to admit that sometimes when in the final stages of my book, I used modafinil actually through the last couple of nights with the last edits, because then already the book was pretty much written and I just needed to do the final editing and rewrite some parts, but I was not really yet motivated because I've been working on the book for so long. So I used modafinil to get through those final stages, but I was pretty set on what I needed to do. So and that's coming back to that story. I had this one friend and he wanted to use it to study for his exam, but he was so not motivated to do it that he took modafinil, wanted to study, and then all of a sudden got hooked up on Google Maps and Google Earth, I think, and then he ended up researching the coordinates for oil ships.
So
the whole
completely
night.
Different thing. Yeah.
And the next morning I asked him, I was like, so how did the studying go? And he's like, damn it, I was super focused and concentrated, but I ended up researching the wrong things. So it ended up, and I think that's the problem oftentimes. So we like distractions. We like to keep sort of that monkey mind busy. And I call that almost like idling, when you're on a bike, but it doesn't really grip and you're pedaling without going anywhere. And nowadays with social media and all those potential distractions, I think everyone knows that you get up in the morning, there's a bunch of things to do. And what you do, you end up on YouTube and watch TED Talk at first. And then you watch maybe the trailer of some older Game of Thrones episodes. And
so what you're saying, you might get in a flow state of watching cat videos and not really doing what you originally wanted to do.
So we tend to then forget our sorrows, and everyone knows it. So there's a thought that comes into your mind. It's sort of painful. Maybe you should maybe wrap your mind around it and find solutions. But it's so much easier to just go on YouTube or go to Netflix or whatever there's right now available, and then distract yourself and step out of your prefrontal cortex.
You get into a flow of procrastination, basically.
That's it. Yeah. And I think it's, and then, you wake up out of that again and it's like, damn, I shouldn't have done that, of course.
Yeah. I noticed actually when I switched over from drinking coffee into drinking tea, that I got, much better focus in the work that I was doing. Definitely, I was not as wired, but when I got going, I was much more easily focused in the task at hand. So that led me to actually realize that I'm actually quite stimulated in my natural state already. I don't need necessary hardcore supplements for stimulation. I need things that are slowing me down a little bit, because that really helps me. So coffee works great if I give a talk or a podcast like this. But if I want to do writing, I get more easily distracted by all kinds of ideas that pop into my mind while I write it, that I don't get words on paper. So I need other tools definitely for that. So there's a fine line. But anyway, for Biohackers Live Show, we have a regular guest. We have a regular guest called Siim Land. He's the Estonian biohacker, and he's doing cool inserts for our shows. And he has prepared a really awesome insert about the flow state. And so we're going to watch his little video, and then we're going to bring the man himself with us. So
That's good. By the way, I call him the Estonian Benjamin Button, because the older he gets, the younger he looks.
yeah, it's amazing that this guy has written already several books, and the metabolic autophagy that came out recently, which is, by the way, also launching as a hardcover in Biohacker Summit, 1st and 2nd of November. So we have a full fiesta of book launches. So we have the Biohacker's Handbook, we have Metabolic Autophagy, and we also have...
Actually, my second book is supposed to come out then too.
Really?
But
We can include you also. If you make it on time, I promise that I will give you, everything you need to launch it.
Oh, that's very kind of you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if my publisher is listening right now, he's like,
Yeah.
you better write it by then.
Yeah, better be ready with it. Yeah, I was also thinking of writing another book, and I know Siim is also working on something. So if we all get more books out, maybe we get...
But mine is going to be in German, just as a warning for everyone.
but there's a lot of people coming anyway who speak German. So
Well, we're going to certainly promote it at FlowFest, since you're going to be there as well. And
yes.
And,
So you're all most welcome to FlowFest. So go to flowgrade.de.
flowfest.de, actually, we switched domains now.
Flowfest.de. Yeah, okay,
.de.
cool. That's where we are.
And for the English speakers /en, and they'll find the English site.
Wonderful.
But yeah, the motherland of European biohacking is still here in Finland,
Super.
in Helsinki. So that's also where I get my inspiration. So if I need to know what's next, then I come to Biohacker Summit or open here the Biohacker's Handbook.
Thank you. Let's bring Siim on. Let's check his insert. So put on the headphones and we're good.
Do you remember that time you were so absorbed by an activity that everything else seemed to fade away into a seemingly endless void? Your focus was sharp and there was nothing else on your mind. Looking back at it, it feels like you enter some sort of a flow. Flow is a state of consciousness where you're fully immersed by whatever you're doing. It's an optimal experience accompanied by active engagement, increased concentration, full involvement and enjoyment. The concept was coined by psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who wanted to know what makes athletes and artists perform at their best. The conditions of flow, according to Csikszentmihalyi, are as follows. One must be involved in an activity with a clear set of goals and progress. The task at hand must have clear and immediate feedback. One must have a good balance between the perceived challenges of the task at hand and their own perceived abilities. To enter flow, we need to be challenged by whatever we're doing and try to solve it. If the task is too difficult, we'll become frustrated. When it is too easy, we'll never be immersed by it. Flow happens between boredom and anxiety. Flow is supposed to encourage the organism to keep doing certain tasks that give positive feedback. It's a way to grow by reaching your potential and then going beyond those limits.
So Siim, welcome to the show. Let me actually turn your microphone on because I think I muted you at some point. Just a sec. Forgot to do that. Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. You're live.
Nice.
So,
Hello, Siim.
how is
Hey,
Estonia
nice to see you.
doing? How is Estonia doing?
Well, at the moment it's been pretty good. Like we're getting some sunlight and the weather's been very nice for the last few days.
So-
And I think like the summer is officially started, at least in this part of the world.
same here in Helsinki, and Max joined here in the studio. So thank you very much for the insert on flow states. You're a man who is like, what is your age now?
24 at the
you're-
moment.
And 24. How many books have you written?
Well, in total, it's like five books or something.
And how many YouTube videos have you produced?
Well, I think it's over 600 or something like that.
So I guess we are talking to the real master of flow states, because this guy is super productive, like at that age. Siim, tell us, what is your secret?
Yeah. Well, if I tell you the secret, then it's not going to be a secret anymore, and everyone would start using it. But the truth is, like, there is no like real magic secret. The only kind of hidden key is staying consistent with these things and having certain routines and daily disciplines that you just stick to. So for me, like, it doesn't take like much willpower, or it doesn't take a lot of effort for me to do these things and produce like content and write books, etc., because it's already like part of my daily routine. And I actually feel weird if I don't do those things. And they kind of become more of like a habitual part of myself. And like, definitely flow is a huge part of that. So I've actually been researching this topic for quite a lot of time as well. And like I mentioned in the video, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, his book has been like a huge influence on everything that I do. And when I first started trying to practice writing, etc., then I was definitely a lot influenced by like several of his books. Like one of them is Flow, but he's also written like several other similar topics. And yeah, definitely, like I tried to implement some form of flow states into my day, like every day, whether that be like writing, whether that be working out, doing something else creative. So yeah, I think it's a huge opportunity for everyone to express their creativity and also like be more productive at the same time.
Right. So, Max, as an expert on flow, Siim mentioned routines, daily routines. So he describes daily routines as the backbone of his flow, ability to access flow. What's your take on that?
Well, I think that routines, in a way, I found that they serve a little bit like training wheels when you learn how to ride a bike. I think that they're very helpful, especially in the beginning when you want to establish that ability to get into a flow state. I think that the mastery would be to really not needing them anymore, or maybe even doing them so automatically that you don't need to force. Routine, for me, there's always this idea of something forced behind it, because it's not yet a habit. It's like something that you set out to do. This is my morning routine, and I'm doing step 1 to step 2, step 3. And ideally, when I'm really in that state, when I know what to do, that I don't need these routines actually anymore.
Right.
That's the next step. But in case I lose control, which I do quite often, then I go back to the routines. So then I say, okay, wait, let's get up at a certain time. Let's meditate. Let's make my coffee, and let's set the agenda for the day. And then it sort of helps me get back on track, get back. But when I'm in a sprint state, and I'm sort of that kind of flow type, when I tend to have these, let's say, episodes in my life where I'm like super highly productive. You might know that for a couple of weeks, and I really sleep less because I just can't stop thinking about the thing I want to do and finish. And I see sort of the goal that I want to attain. It's not that far away. Then I tend to really, I can get up and just start working. And then I need to do that too, because it feels like almost I'm postponing my ability to flow with going through some routines, which I then don't need. But then after some time, then I'm sort of in that recovery stage again. All endorphins, all neurotransmitters are gone, and I'm lying in bed and don't know what to do with myself and feel super unproductive. And then I go through that cycle again, establishing routines, going through that stage till I find that flow moment again.
Right. Can you describe us maybe a few of your daily routines that you think are key for you to tap into your potential to get into a flow state? That could be for work, for writing, for exercise, for whatever you think is relevant to mention.
Certainly, like I think it ties a little bit to what I explained before. One thing that's really important for me is to set an agenda for the day. So that is a huge part of my morning routine that I really write down, and I keep it to 3. I think 3 is a good number, but crucial goals, usually also for the week, what needs to be done in order for the week to be successful. And I ask myself really, what if at the end of the week, what has to have happened, like the 3 most crucial things that will make the week a good week. And once I have them, then sort of the other things fall into place, what I need to do next, and I can prioritize a little better. And then I write it down. Sometimes I even throw it away after, but it's just that process of using a piece of paper and a pen and physically writing those things down. And then what is already automized is pretty much that I have my coffee. I usually really just the first thing I do is have a coffee, go outside. I always go outside every morning, do a couple of push-ups, breathe some air. And actually a fairly new part of my morning routine is I have a couple plants now ever since I moved back to Munich.
Plants?
Plants, yeah, just basic
Like
plants.
cannabis or
No, not not yet. Not yet. Actually, I did have a small cannabis plant, which was never, well, it never came to fruition. But I was given it actually as a present from a friend, and had it at home for a while. But it has a really strong smell as well,
yeah.
and so
Everyone thinks you're a pothead if you have a plant around.
exactly. So it died by itself eventually.
It's actually pretty funny that we actually met in. Actually, we got to know each other pretty well at a Quantified Self conference back in the day. I don't remember what year that was.
I think
maybe
it was 2013.
2013. That's a long time ago, like 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
So obviously, when you're in Amsterdam, what do? You go to a coffee shop. So we went to a coffee shop, and we did what you do in a coffee shop. And after
Legally, of course.
yeah, legally, after things went legally around, I was sitting there. I was watching you talking to a friend of ours, Nelly, and suddenly I noticed after a few minutes that you started speaking French to Nelly, and Nelly started speaking French, and the body expressions, everything morphed into a French person. And at that point, I thought you were German, and I thought that Nelly was Finnish. And suddenly I saw two French persons talking to each other, and I thought I'm going to flip out. And maybe it was because of the reefer madness or something like this. But it turned out that you guys actually, what happened?
That was really funny. Yeah. So we ended up staying at the same Airbnb. It's
Yeah.
I remember you cooking for everyone. You already were quite into nutrition then, actually.
Yeah.
And made steak for everyone. That was really good. Yeah. We ended up at this wooden shack, kind of like coffee shop, I remember, and it was this bar and this like bartender, and I think there was already this one person at the end of the bar talking to himself. And I thought, wow, okay, this is a new experience. And then we ended up, like you said, doing what you do in a coffee shop. And I remember I also had some red wine, and I got a little bit on my shirt, and then I kept putting salt on it and rubbing it in, and the barkeeper was just laughing at me because I must have done it for like a half hour straight without getting it out, obviously.
So things like cannabis, many things like substances like coffee have been used by creative people for creative expression and helping them to get to a specific state where they can produce. And pot specifically has been used by musicians. Seems like that they describe that they're able to get to a state where they're really with the music and they're flowing with it and they are fully immersed in it. That even drummers describe that they become better drummers when they are a little bit high. But if you're an author trying to write a sentence, you write a sentence halfway and you forget what you just wrote and you don't know what's going to come up next. So it's definitely not something you want to use for that. I know some people in countries where all of this is legal, where they only like microdose small amounts, which helps them to get a little bit of the anxiety off and really helps them to focus. I know people who use alcohol, so they might drink a glass of wine in the evening to really kind of help them relax. Alcohol increases GABA in the brain, so it's an inhibitory neurotransmitter, so that might be helpful for people who are otherwise easily kind of overstimulated. So there's many different things that you could use, definitely in substance-wise, to help you to get to a flow state. But that being music, or it could be writing, or it could be exercise. Like coffee is great for getting into a flow state in terms of physical exercise. Definitely, it opens up veins. Chocolate is another one for the theobromine that's in it. Theacrine is awesome. There's many different substances that are even creatine that is good for physical exercise, for maintaining focused physical, because and
But just one quick thought, because
yeah, yes,
I think
please,
that
jump in. And
with-
I'll let Seam also jump in a second.
yes, because you just mentioned alcohol, or maybe there's also a couple, different. I call them numbers. People that end up using, I think, drugs to maybe numb themselves and shut out some of those distractions. Because it is an overstimulated world, and you're constantly, I don't know, being attacked by these different stimuli, and I think it really, I heard that as well, that people use alcohol in order to actually perform better. I even know basketball players, and there are even some quite successful examples. Let's say Dennis Rodman, for example, who apparently, according to basketball lore, played his best games after having a full night out drinking, partying, and the reason behind it might be that he was able to then just focus more, sort of numb himself from all those stimuli. Another number, which is more and more popular, which might be a bit concerning for the one or the other, and it's definitely nothing that I would recommend, but it's ketamine. It's a horse tranquilizer people use now to party. And I think one reason why people use that is because it's, like it said, it's a tranquilizer, but if you dose it right, you can actually go out and then lose yourself on the dance floor, get into a sort of a flow state.
Yeah, kratom is used in Southeast Asia by farmers to both for increasing their stamina, so they can work on the field for like 15 hours.
Ketamine is.
I mean, I'm talking about kratom now.
Kratom.
Sorry, I changed the topic completely. So
kratom is green tea, actually. Yeah,
kratom is.
I think it's legal actually in Germany. I don't
many
think so. In
countries,
Austria, it is.
These are changing all the time. Like some countries are legalizing things now. Then there's obviously things like microdosing, that in Silicon Valley people are talking about. In entrepreneurship, that it helps them to be more creative and more empathic with people, and helps them focus somehow and maybe have sustained energy also. So there's all different ways how mammals have used different substances to help them hunt, or even eat more, or focus on what they need to do. And I find it fascinating. But then there's people like Steam who don't need anything else but a little bit of heavy lifting and exercise. And
who knows? Who knows? He said
knows?
He has a secret he's not sharing.
I see. Okay, Steam,
kidding,
tell
Seem.
us a little bit about your daily routines. And I know that you're not a big coffee drinker, so you take it moderately. So tell us a little bit about your daily routines. What really helps you to get to the flow state? So Max explained that he writes things down, and it helps him to clear his mind and focus. What's your trick?
Well, I think the best nootropic is actually like a good night's sleep. So that's most of the cognitive powers and ability to have focus. It comes from being adequately recovered. And I think just most people, they tend to compensate for a bad sleep with these stimulants and nootropics, etc., because their brain is just too tired and they don't just have the pure power, or they don't have the enough energy. So I would like to always primarily focus on optimizing my own sleep and making sure that I am actually recovered. So because most of the time, like if I do feel tired, then everything else tends to suffer as well in terms of like creative work. But I also like to have at least, like I was in the past, like a few years ago, I did have like a more longer morning routine where I would go outside and do some breathing exercises, get some sunlight exposure, do some meditation, do some journaling, etc., etc. But yeah, I feel like Max said, that at the moment I don't feel the need to do it, just because of having achieved sort of a mastery over those things, as well as like more freedom. I do think it's definitely like very useful to have these routines and disciplines, because you need to build up the discipline and consistency to achieve that sort of a freedom. Like you won't be able to overcome procrastination like automatically if you build the disciplines and routines, if you haven't like stick to it, so to say. So yeah, I definitely implement a lot of like different routines in the past, but at the moment I'm just I'm at a point where I'll maybe just go outside to get some sunlight and like offset the proper circadian rhythm, but I'll be able to just start working immediately after waking up without needing to go through like a very strenuous routine. And I actually think it's like something to everyone should strive towards. Like I want to be achieving this state where I'll be able to pull the trigger and flow by command, no matter the situation where I'm at. Like I don't want to be so dependent of all like different supplements and routines to be able to perform at my peak. I want to be able to. I want to achieve like peak performance in the middle of the storm, like in the subway, in the bus, in the middle of the night, etc., etc. Like I want to just do it automatically and click with it without needing to put myself into the right state of mind. I just want to go, because I have built up sort of a routine into myself.
Max, there's discussion about flow triggers, things that help you to trigger the state of flow. And what Siim just described was his kind of wish to be able to access flow at any point in time when he needs that. I believe that in the future, your state of mind is a choice. If you want to be creative, there's a button you can press and it makes you creative. There is another button that helps you to focus and write a book. There is another button that helps you to get to the flow state of sleep. Or flow state in terms of physical exercise, that you lose yourself in the physical feat. Now, there's ways to do that. There is pharmaceuticals. There is nutraceuticals. There's electroceuticals. And then there is all ways how you can understand your patterns of behavior and hack those flow triggers that help you to produce the right mix of neurotransmitters that gets you in that state. So it seems like Siim is already kind of close becoming a superhuman who can access flow state when he wants, because he already feels that he doesn't need daily routines even, but he can, trigger himself for that. It could be different strategies. Like I know that people like Tony Robbins have certain routines before he goes on stage. He jumps on a trampoline, he does a few dance moves, and then he goes. And it kind of helps him to trigger his state where he can access flow. Now, is it possible to develop these kind of triggers that enables one in the middle of the storm, just about anyone, to access a state of focused attention, which is right between anxiety and boredom?
Totally. First of all, I think the answer is yes. I think you can. And I think, again, but what you just described is more the internal evolution of maybe the flow trigger. Yeah, you press a button and you become more creative because you might switch on certain releases of neurotransmitters or brain waves. I think right now, the environment is something that's probably super still underestimated in the broader spectrum. That I remember as an athlete, for example, you didn't really think about disciplining yourself. You were disciplined by your environment. You were in a team. There were certain forces. You needed to compete with your teammates at first, and then with other players and other teams. In competition, there was constant competition. There was a schedule, training sessions, and so on. It was sort of organized for you. So, as a high performance athlete, you have a team around you, an environment that helps you get into these states more often. And I think it becomes very tiring and almost impossible if you have to discipline yourself every day. So I think routine is one thing that you can use. The other one is really your external environment, and that includes the people that you surround yourself with. I mean, you guys set up here a Biohacker Center with people who are interested in the same goal, work on the same things. You set up an environment where people can drink healthy coffee, where they have access to certain methods and blue blockers, and to avoid, for example, the damaging effects of the blue light and so on. And what my recommendation would be also to set yourself up really in an environment, and then look for people that help you to have to use less discipline and be disciplined by your environment. I think the more you can do that, the easier your life will become, and the more flow you'll have in your everyday life. Because if you just have to get up and really pretty much force yourself to stay off social media or use certain apps, and then there's a new app that's addicting and so on, it's really tough. And then people are really tough on themselves because I just don't have the discipline. Genetically, I'm a loser, whatever. But that's not true. It's really this is a tough environment to be in, especially when you're growing up with these things. We are already at an age where I'd say we are even beyond. We didn't grow up with social media,
Right.
We know that time before smartphones. But imagine like a 15-year-old now, and their social circle is pretty much half digital, half real, and they can't compare yet, and then it gets harder and harder, and then of course eventually you feel like you're not disciplined enough for this world and so on. And that's, I think, also the goal as an employer or someone like what you're doing here, or with events, that you really show people how to choose the right environment, to set up an environment that takes some of that work.
Yes.
Helps you.
Yeah, that's right. When it comes to biohacking, you can certainly try to hack yourself, like physically, psychologically, whatever means, your mind and body. But in the end, paying attention to your environment. How do you modify your environment so that it supports whatever you need to do? I've noticed, for example, that I get much more creative thinking done when I go for a massage. And when I'm sitting on the table and someone is working on, some of the stiff points, that is also releasing, any kind of problems that I'm working with. And it really makes me think about it in a very creative way while I'm there. And by having those moments in my week, I get more moments when I can actually reflect on what's going on. And it only happens in that kind of perfect state while I'm getting a massage. Now, in an environment perspective, I would then schedule things like that into my day or week so that I get more of those kind of moments. Now, there's another moment where I get into this free flow of thoughts, and that's when I go for foraging. That's when I go to the forest. That's when I work with plants. And it really helps me to think. It might be a moment when I'm doing my dishes, by hand instead of using a washing machine. So in a high performance world where we are, sometimes you really need, a little bit of not faster, better, stronger approach, but maybe, slow down. It's not a fast food world in the end. If you want to do creative work, you need to slow down a little bit, slow thinking. So somehow you make your environment change faster than you are, and like going to nature, and that really stimulates you with free flow of thoughts. So those are some of the flow triggers for me for creative thinking, which I can't access if I'm in front of my computer. I'm in a cafeteria with a laptop or whatnot. Some people might be able to access those states, but I can't. I need to go somewhere else. And that's an environmental hack. And most of our book is actually written in a summer cottage. So the Biohacker's Handbook, it has not been really written in a in some kind of office environment. It's definitely been written in nature, and it probably reflects also in part of the content as well. So
Very much so.
yeah, Siim, can you share a little bit more about your thoughts and ideas as a closing for your presence here in this stream? What would you recommend people to study or look into if they want to have more flow in their life and less anxious, less boredom, and more of that focused attention?
Yeah, it's definitely a good question. And I do agree that your environment plays a huge role in terms of your ability to stay focused and do things. Like you won't be able to like overcome the willpower battles all the time if you're constantly like triggered by different things in your environment. And definitely learning how to like manage your social media activities, that's like one of the most critical parts I think most people suffer from. And definitely some of the books that I recommend people to read are Flow by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, and as well as Deep Work by Cal Newport. So Flow talks about the entire concepts and ideas of flow, but at the same time, the Deep Work book talks about this creating this period of time for every day where you're actually doing something very focused and something that is more meaningful for you, where you're like manifesting some sort of like creative aspects of yourself, and that can apply to like different industries and different kind of vocations. And of course, like I would imagine learning, but using biohacking techniques would be also quite amazing for it. And Max's book and your guys' books, those things will definitely help anyone to kind of detox their environment and help to also become more focused by using like nutrition, etc.
Amazing. I would also like to add, thank you, Siim, by the way. Thank you very much for joining.
Yeah, thanks, Siim. By the way, I think that it's quite impressive at your young age. I mean, what you're able to do. I'm quite impressed because you're very internally driven. This is something I think a lot of people struggle with, and this is certainly a unique ability that you have. And then trying to understand that more, and then sharing with this with the world is very valuable. So yeah, thanks for that.
Thanks.
Certainly. So I'm going to change this a little bit here around. So here we go. I actually want to add Flow Genome Project by Stephen Kotler, and I guess it's Jamie Wheel. Yeah. So that's another awesome resource. They've done a lot of work in popularizing the idea of accessing flow states, especially for top management of many companies. And if you're interested in accessing flow states, and if you want to meet Siim and learn directly from him also on how he does his daily routines, at the 5-year anniversary Biohacker Summit in Helsinki, 1st and 2nd of November, we have a special program item in addition to all the book launches, which is the Optimized Day workshop. And the Optimized Day workshop is basically a hands-on workshop that starts from the morning when you wake up to the moment when you go to sleep. And together in guidance of some of the best experts on daily routines, we will dive deep into creating a perfect day. So it is less lecturing and more about all the daily routines that you get into. How you wake up, how you prepare your morning water, how do you get sunlight, how do you have snacks, nutrition throughout the day that supports your focus, what kind of lunch would you prepare, what kind of breakfast would you prepare, what kind of technologies might you use if you want to have more focused attention in your day, how would you do journaling, daily goals and tasks. And Siim is going to be there. He's going to be teaching some of his tips and tricks. Hopefully Max can also, make it there. So I think we would love to hear from you as well. So that's going to take place actually 30th of October. So that's a day before. We will have the tickets available for this soon, but it's going to be a deep dive in a beautiful location into daily routines, and we're going to learn.
And I heard we are all going to do it in Halloween costumes as well.
I guess if that's a flow trigger, we will do that. So, yeah. So, with that, I mean, thank you, Siim. I'll just close the online thing here. Here we go. Okay, back to studio with Max. So, Max, what do you think about, Siim? Siim seems to be like a 24-year-old guy, amazingly perfect.
I actually didn't know he
many
was that young. But
he's really like, I mean, with every generation, things seem to improve for sure, and that is quite amazing. You don't need the headphones anymore. So I remember when I was 24. Well, I started my first company when I was 16. I was teaching in high school when I was 17, in university when I was 18. So I thought I started early on these things, and then comes people like Siim who write 5 books before they're 24. So here we go.
It's crazy. They get younger and younger, like Matt Maruka as well.
Yeah,
that apprentice of Jack Cruises. He's 21 or something like that, and already
he's well versed in the effects of light on our circadian biology and how it affects health, for sure.
They get younger and younger.
I meet all these cool guys in all these biohacking conferences, and that's what I love about putting these events together, is the fact that you meet people like Siim. Siim came to 2017 Biohacker Summit, and I remember him. He was a really bright young guy. He was making all these cool YouTube videos. He made probably one of the best social media piece out of that event. And I kept in contact with him, and now he's become bigger and bigger. So what kind of people have you met in your journey of organizing the Flow Fest? Interesting people who went on to create something big.
Oh man, there's so many interesting people out there. That's probably one of the lessons, that you think you kind of know the universe. You don't. So it happens almost on a weekly or monthly basis, that I'm introduced to someone that I haven't heard before. And then it's usually like, wow, how come I never came across that person before? What kind of work he or she does. And recently, a really interesting conversation I had with an Austrian chronobiologist, Dr. Maximilian Moser, who's worked with astronauts also on studying the biorhythm, and also has run several studies on the effects of certain woods on sleep and so on. And he's this really looks like a nutty professor in a way, because he's this Albert Einstein hair going. And
I have him here if someone wants to see that. Yeah, there he is.
Oh yeah, there he is.
Yeah, he looks like an Einstein for sure.
So
looks
he's
like
actually, there are quite a few on
there.
there, so I can go almost through all of them. There, Marco Ratschlag, for example, he does this live hypnosis on stage. He's going to be at Flowfest this year for the first time, and pretty much a psychologist who started his own method and company. There is Alexander Wunsch, who is quite known already worldwide in the field of photobiology. There's actually a really interesting guy, if you scroll down a little bit, Adrian. I love him. Adrian Iselin. Yeah, he's actually an acro yoga trainer, but he's half Canadian, half German, and very much into somatic intelligence. So how to teach people how to use their body in order to understand themselves better. And he goes also deep into sexuality and into understanding your bodily functions and what your body tries to tell you. And at first you think, wow, he's an acro yoga coach, but he's so much more than that. And actually, I found out as a side gig, since he's bilingual, he also works for Netflix and does translations for them. So he's also this really interesting, super well-rounded person. And when you hear him talk, he's so well-versed as well, and speaks on an intellectual level about the human body and what it means to feel yourself and to move and so I'm always fascinated when I come across someone who is, I think that the two fundamental attributes to people that I usually find interesting. One is curiosity, that someone is just really curious or passionate about something, and it explains it. And I think almost any subject can all of a sudden become interesting when it's always amazing with whatever you come up with every year at Biohacker Summit. When we're in the kitchen together at the dinner, and you speak about some new herb that I've never heard about, or I remember last time when you said that the grass-fed is yesterday.
Yeah.
Herb fed is
wild herb fed.
Wild herb fed.
Wild herb fed.
So
cows. That's the next big thing after grass-fed organic beef.
And so that's
butter.
I think curiosity and that makes a lot. But people have come across. I think that oftentimes in the US at least, a lot of the same names, that go into each other's podcasts, and then you all of a sudden you have you're under the impression that there's like 20 people who are good at what they do, and then and that's it. But there's really so many, and they're professors at probably at every university. There's a professor that you could interview and who can
absolutely
contribute.
To me, these events are like, the combined intelligence of the audience greatly surpasses anyone on stage.
Yeah, it's this collective consciousness now, that you're tapping into, and that's I think the interesting thing. Also, what you're doing right now with your technology, that you can do that all of a sudden, bring these different minds together and create an even bigger realm of like a universal memory. Of stuff, and then you can tap into that, and we're already using our smartphones obviously to do that. But like you said before, maybe eventually it will be integrated into some sort of hardware in our bodies,
perhaps with a button.
Or maybe even intuitively, that you make decisions that you don't even have to logically think about anymore, but that help you adapt.
Certainly. So FlowFest is going to take place. Can you remind us of the dates?
July 6th in Munich. Again, we have a really nice location. You haven't seen it actually, because the first year we were in Berlin still, which was also a nice location. But in Munich we have this. It's on an island in the middle of the Munich River. It's called the Prater Island, and it used to be an old, I think, spirit and soap factory, and it's protected, and it has a little beach. So I really hope that the weather will be good, because it's. One part is you can't really go into the water, but it's like this beachy theme with a bar and so on, and it's go down some steps, and then the location is just really, really nice, and so it's just fitting for FlowFest because it's a flowy location.
Absolutely. I'm going to be there 6th of July. I hope you will also be there. So half of the talks will be in English, right?
Not entirely half, but I think we have 4 talks at least in English. So it's
but a bunch of people who speak English.
Casper will be there again. Jack Cruz will be there. Matthias Rübing will be there. We'll have 2 stages this year. There'll be a bunch of cool stuff to try out. We'll have an infrared sauna there again. Not again this first time, but
awesome. It's going to be great. So everyone is most welcome to flowfest.de to meet us.
It's really it's an experience.
Do we have a discount code or something? Maybe Biohacker.
You do. You do. I think it's BH Summit.
BH Summit.
I really hope it's true because it's live.
If it's not
FlowGrade also
if it doesn't work, it will work in a couple of hours.
Yes,
right?
that's
so
true.
BH Summit will be the code for discount at flowfest.de if you want to join us. And if not, we're most welcome to Biohacker Summit, which is 1st and 2nd of November in Helsinki, Finland. Max is going to be one of the speakers, hopefully with a new book. But at least he's going to be there sharing his experience on flow and how you can access those states. Siim is going to be there. We're all going to be there. So you should be there, or you're square or something like this.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Definitely. It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for flying in from Germany here.
May I ask actually you one more question? I think it's interesting for the audience as well.
Let's go.
But that's something I want to know. What is something that you've discovered, like in the last, let's say, 6 months, that you integrated into your life, like something like a new biohack that has transformed a part of your day?
A new biohack that has transformed my day. Well, we have an infrared sauna here at the office, and I often like to go with my laptop in there and also turn a red light simultaneously. And I used to also combine a spike mat with binaural beats and red light with some meditation to really recharge myself for the day. And that became a pretty consistent routine. So I would do that immediately when I feel a little bit tired. I would lie down under a red light on a spike mat with binaural beats on my head and do some meditation. And that really recharges me and helps me with my daily activities. So I think many of these things are seasonal. I think it's gonna fade now that I have sun. I don't need that much red light devices anymore, or any kind of light therapy. I just go outside and nature is going to be my teacher. And I discovered some really nice new herbs that are definitely recharging me. And so I'm going to pick up that habit again. When it comes to, I guess it's kind of in the same lines as Seam, that you kind of train yourself in different practices and daily routines. First, you follow a kind of rigorous regime because that's the way how you learn. That's the way how you really, build up habits. But once you get those nailed down, you can really loosen your grip a little bit. You don't need to do exactly the same sequence of things, but you can certainly then use different strategies in different situations. So you become wiser in terms of triggers and habits and routines, what you're going to be deploying at a specific time slot. But for me, for sure, like drinking more tea has been one of the key things. So bulletproof coffee is not the end of all when it comes to biohacking. I think it's an okay beverage, but you can definitely optimize that also by.
Well, I think I always call it the gateway drug. It's something easy to understand. It's sort of lifestyle-y. It's now in Hollywood and so on, and people hear about it and they want to try it. But it's sort of the gateway drug, maybe to get into making something out of the ordinary.
I want to share actually one thing. Let's see here. So I have this device called Mellow, and Mellow is let's just open up the website. So here we have it. So Mellow is a sous vide machine, and the nice thing about this is that it actually cools also the food, and you can set up a timer with your mobile phone. So I like to make my morning eggs with this thing. So I put my eggs in the evening in there. It cools it down into a cold
refrigerator
temperature, kind of throughout the night, and then it starts the sous vide process, which takes 1.5 hours to produce the perfect egg with the perfectly velvety egg yolk. And if you really enjoy your morning eggs and you want to have them perfectly cooked, this is the best way. And I set it up so that the eggs are ready immediately when I wake up. So it starts already 1.5 hours, and I save 15-20 minutes making my breakfast by using this thing. So I'm basically now shifting part of my work to be done by machines while I sleep for my morning routine. So that's
I love
a pretty
having
cool
machines
thing.
work for you.
Yeah, that's for sure. Machines are taking over. They're taking over my breakfast for sure.
That's a cool advice. I haven't heard about that one.
So there's all these small tips definitely that you can get yourself into. So with that, Max, I think we're kind of running out of time, and we're editing this down and sending this over. Also, as a podcast, if you want to listen it afterwards. If you want to ask questions, propose.
Actually, Timo, give me one more time, because I asked my Instagram followers to ask you questions.
You have? Yeah. Oh, you have questions. Nice.
Hold on.
Okay, let's do it.
Hold on.
Okay. I'm not going to end yet.
Oh God, now I'm.
Do we have any cool questions? There's something here.
I just have to check.
Okay, what do you want to learn from this guy?
How can I access the responses? That's oh God, I'm not.
I don't know. It's your phone.
Yeah, you're very true.
I think one of the best hacks for accessing Flow is to get rid of your phone. Really, not to use one because it's a huge distractor.
Very true.
That's for sure. But I also like to use it as a small micro break.
Actually, I got a question for you.
Okay, shoot.
I just thought of that. No, because people said asked me if you could do like some sort of therapy, let's say a stem cell therapy that would allow you to live open-ended, would you do it?
When it comes to longevity, I don't think it's good for our species that we discover the ways of extending our lifespans infinitely, because as species, we evolve through natural selection and adaptation to our environment. And basically, you live as long as is needed for your genes to be passed on and for the gene expression to change based on environmental factors. That's epigenetics. And if we live like 120 years old or 180 or 2000, the way how I see this, our environment is changing faster than we are. That's why we need biohacking today. So we need to modify ourselves. We need to, hack our environments and all of that to stay healthy. And if we extend our lifespans, that becomes exponentially harder. And in the end, we need to move then from evolution by natural selection to evolution by intelligent design, where you're modifying yourself physically. So gene manipulation, stem cell therapies, whatever we need to do what nature would do otherwise. And I don't think we have it all mapped out, or that we know what are the consequences of our actions in the end, and if it's good for us in the long run. So I rather live a good life, and I like generations. I like to be 20 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old, 60, 70, 80. I like that. I like that I have different decades of my life that have different focus areas and interests. If I would be stuck at 24 years old or something like this, or stuck the worst case scenario at 90-year-old, that I've extended my lifespan through whatever means, meaning that, that's the nightmare scenario, is that you're old, fragile, and you're kept alive like a vegetable. So
yeah, or even when you're a 24-year-old now, that's not a 24-year-old in 100 years. So you might be just an older version, like an old timer on the street. Maybe still working, but they're newer, better models, and so I think that's also it's like old meat, that was that you warm up a bit.
Yeah, and I would like to reset myself occasionally, because all the trauma from the past, all the experience you've had, all the relationships you've had, all the issues you have to deal with, all the work, those are becoming harder and harder the older you become, in a way. So it's harder to let go of your past. Maybe it becomes easier to accept, the past as well. But to me, it's quite natural that you live your life and, you get married and you get children and you get a career and then you retire, and that's it. I want to, live to my fullest doing all of that. I don't want my body or mind to break down. I want to enjoy doing it. I want to share my learnings. I don't necessarily want to get stuck at, 24 or now 37.
That's the last recommendation, and then I'll let you end the podcast. I know I have been extending it, but there's a great book. Unfortunately, it's I think a British author, but it's called, I think, How to Stop Time. In German, it's Wie man die Zeit anhält, which is directly translated into How to Stop Time. And the author sort of creates this. Well, there's a species of human beings that try to be hidden, but they grow to 1,000 years old. They just age way slower. and he describes it out of the perspective of one person, the hero, sort of, but also the struggles that come with it. So it's really well done and well researched, and how tough it can be if you're like growing that old, but many people around you don't, and that he loses the love of his life, and then at the end kind of wants to end his life, and then he finds love again, and so on. But it's a really cool book, and it's by Matt Haig. I can look it up, and we can.
Awesome. Yeah, let's share that
together.
on the notes. Thank you very much, Max, for sharing your knowledge on optimizing the day. We're going to have more at the Biohacker Summit. Check out Biohacker's Handbook. Check out the German Biohacker's Handbook, Biohacking Optimiere dich selbst.
That's
Optimize
it.
yourself.
Very well said.
And yeah, we're going to have a bunch of book launches there. Welcome to the Optimized Day workshop also. So with that, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time with our next Biohacker Summit speaker. We're going to dive deep into who knows what when it comes to self-optimization. So enjoy your day. Have a healthy day and week. Thank you very much.
Go for flow.